Good evening, and welcome to our look back at the month that was. June 2024 will be remembered for a confluence of major events, both at home and abroad, that have left an indelible mark on the American consciousness. From the halls of power in Washington, D.C. to the battle-scarred streets of Gaza, this month has been a whirlwind of shocking developments, political intrigue, and deeply concerning trends that have the potential to reshape the geopolitical landscape. We've seen long simmering tensions boil over, political scandals unfold, and the very foundations of our democracy tested. Over the next few minutes, we'll unpack the top 10 news stories that dominated headlines and sparked conversations across the country. We'll delve into the heart of these stories, examining their impact and exploring the implications for the future. So, buckle up as we take you on a deep dive into the most shocking news stories that rocked the United States in June 2024. From international conflicts to significant political developments, we've got it all covered. Let's get started. And before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with all our latest content.
We begin our look at June 2024 with the escalating violence in the Middle East, where the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian conflict reached a fever pitch. In early June, Israeli forces conducted a deadly raid in central Gaza, resulting in the deaths of at least 75 Palestinians, including several police officers. The images emerging from Gaza were deeply disturbing. Hospitals struggled to cope with the influx of casualties, and the streets were filled with mourners expressing their grief and anger. The international community reacted with a mixture of condemnation and concern, with many world leaders urging restraint. The Biden administration, while expressing support for Israel's right to defend itself, also called for de-escalation and a return to negotiations. However, the situation on the ground remained volatile, with fears of a wider conflict growing by the day. The Gaza Strip, already grappling with a dire humanitarian crisis, was pushed further to the brink. The UN reported severe shortages of essential supplies, including food, water, and medicine, as the violence hampered aid deliveries and displaced thousands of civilians.
The international community watched with growing alarm as the violence in Gaza escalated. Protests erupted in cities around the world, with demonstrators condemning the Israeli offensive and calling for an end to the bloodshed. The United Nations Security Council held emergency meetings to address the crisis, but efforts to pass a resolution were repeatedly blocked, highlighting the deep divisions within the international community over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The conflict also sparked a wave of misinformation and propaganda online, with both sides accusing the other of manipulating the narrative. Social media platforms struggled to contain the spread of inflammatory content, further fueling tensions. The events in Gaza served as a stark reminder of the intractable nature of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the human cost of this decades-long struggle. As June drew to a close, the situation remained volatile, with no clear path to peace in sight.
Here in the United States, the political scene was equally turbulent, with the trial of Hunter Biden, son of President Joe Biden, continuing to grip the nation. Accused of financial impropriety and facing mounting legal pressure, Hunter Biden became a lightning rod for partisan attacks and a focal point of the 2024 presidential election. Republicans seized on the trial, attempting to tie Hunter Biden's alleged wrongdoings to his father, President Biden. They argued that the case pointed to a culture of corruption within the Biden family and that the president himself was compromised. Democrats, on the other hand, dismissed the charges against Hunter Biden as politically motivated, arguing that Republicans were using the trial to smear the president and distract from his legislative achievements. Public opinion remained sharply divided, with polls showing a stark partisan split on the question of Hunter Biden's guilt or innocence.
Despite the intense media scrutiny and the constant barrage of political attacks, a recent poll revealed that a surprising 64% of voters claimed that the Hunter Biden trial would not impact their voting decisions in the upcoming presidential election. This finding suggested that while the trial certainly fueled partisan divisions and dominated cable news coverage, it may not have significantly swayed public opinion in either direction. The poll also revealed a deep sense of fatigue among voters, many of whom expressed frustration with the seemingly endless cycle of scandals and investigations that have come to define American politics. However, the remaining 36% of voters who stated that the trial would influence their vote represented a significant portion of the electorate, particularly in a tightly contested election. It remained to be seen whether the Hunter Biden trial would ultimately prove to be a decisive factor in the 2024 presidential race.
Good evening, and welcome to our continuing coverage of the top 10 most shocking U.S. news stories from June 2024. As we delve deeper into this month's events, it's clear that the nation is on a knife's edge, grappling with political division, international conflict, and a looming sense of uncertainty. The latest polls paint a stark picture of the political landscape as we head towards the 2024 presidential election. Former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden are locked in a statistical dead heat, with Trump garnering 46% support and Biden trailing closely at 45%. This narrow margin underscores the deep polarization that continues to grip the country. Adding fuel to the fire is the ongoing debate surrounding Trump's recent sentencing for a criminal conviction. While the details of the case remain sealed, the verdict has ignited a firestorm of controversy, with opinions sharply divided along partisan lines. This tense political climate, coupled with international turmoil and domestic challenges, has left many Americans feeling anxious about the future. With the election just around the corner, the stakes have never been higher, and the nation watches with bated breath as these stories continue to unfold.
The escalating conflict in Gaza has not only ignited international outrage, but also sparked a crisis of conscience within the United States. Major Harrison Mann, a decorated U.S. Army officer, resigned from his post in June 2024, citing his opposition to the Biden administration's policies in the region. In a scathing public statement, Major Mann accused the U.S. government of complicity in the suffering of Palestinian civilians. He argued that continued American support for Israel, particularly in the face of mounting civilian casualties, was morally untenable. Mann's resignation sent shockwaves through the military establishment and ignited a fierce debate about the role of the United States in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. His actions highlight the deep moral and ethical dilemmas at the heart of this decades-long conflict. While the Pentagon has downplayed Mann's resignation, characterizing it as an isolated incident, his actions have resonated with a growing number of Americans who are increasingly uncomfortable with the United States' unwavering support for Israel.
In a shocking revelation that sent ripples through Washington, reports emerged in June 2024, exposing a secret Israeli influence campaign operating on American soil. This covert operation, allegedly orchestrated by elements within the Israeli government, sought to sway U.S. lawmakers and the American public towards supporting Israel's war efforts in Gaza. The campaign, as detailed in leaked documents and whistleblower accounts, employed a sophisticated network of fake social media accounts, fabricated news websites, and orchestrated grassroots lobbying efforts. The goal was clear: to manipulate public opinion and pressure the Biden administration into adopting a more favorable stance towards Israel's actions in Gaza. This revelation sparked immediate outrage and calls for investigations from both sides of the political aisle. The very notion of a foreign government covertly working to influence American policy struck at the heart of American sovereignty and democratic values. The Biden administration, already facing criticism for its handling of the escalating conflict in Gaza, found itself in a precarious position. The administration condemned the alleged Israeli campaign, vowing to investigate the matter thoroughly and take appropriate action. The fallout from the exposed Israeli influence campaign extended far beyond the halls of power in Washington. The revelation sowed seeds of distrust among the American public, raising serious questions about the integrity of online information and the vulnerability of American democracy to foreign interference. Civil liberties groups voiced concerns about the potential for such covert campaigns to erode public trust in institutions and exacerbate existing political divisions. The use of disinformation and manipulation tactics, they argued, posed a direct threat to the principles of transparency and accountability that underpin a healthy democracy. The Israeli government, for its part, vehemently denied any involvement in the alleged covert campaign. Israeli officials dismissed the reports as baseless accusations and attempts to undermine the strong relationship between Israel and the United States. Despite these denials, the damage was done. The revelations cast a long shadow over U.S.-Israeli relations and further complicated the already fraught geopolitical landscape in the Middle East. The incident served as a stark reminder of the challenges posed by covert foreign influence operations in the digital age.
The Supreme Court issued a series of consequential rulings this month. One decision upheld a federal law prohibiting gun possession for individuals subject to domestic violence restraining orders. This ruling affirms the need to keep firearms out of the hands of those who pose a threat to their families. However, it reignited the debate over the Second Amendment, with gun rights groups vowing to challenge the law's constitutionality. The court also ruled on a water rights dispute between Texas and New Mexico. This case highlights the challenges faced by states in the arid West as they grapple with dwindling water resources. The Supreme Court's rulings on gun safety and water rights underscore the profound challenges facing our nation.
The GOP-led House voted to sanction officials from the International Criminal Court. This move rebukes the court's pursuit of arrest warrants against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The vote underscored the challenge of finding common ground on profound moral and political issues. The Biden administration opposed the sanctions, arguing they undermine the court's legitimacy. This complicates the relationship between the United States and the ICC. The United States fears politically motivated prosecutions against American citizens. At the heart of this debate is whether international law should supersede national sovereignty. The ICC is intended to prosecute individuals only when national courts are unable or unwilling. Critics argue the court is susceptible to political bias and overreach. The ICC's investigation into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has reignited long-standing debates. Supporters argue it ensures accountability for potential war crimes. They contend no nation should be above the law. Opponents view the ICC's investigation as a politically motivated attack on Israel. The House's decision has drawn sharp criticism from human rights groups. Critics argue such actions undermine the credibility of the United States. The Biden administration faces the task of navigating these pressures while upholding human rights. The debate over the ICC and its investigation in the Middle East is unlikely to be resolved soon. It reflects deeply held beliefs about justice, international law, and American power. Finding a way forward will require careful diplomacy and a commitment to dialogue.
Congressman Andy Kim secured a decisive victory in the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate, defeating incumbent Senator Robert Menendez. Menendez, facing corruption trials, was challenged by Kim's message of change and integrity. Kim, a former national security official, campaigned on transparency and reform. His victory highlights the influence of progressive values within the Democratic Party. The general election is now poised to be closely watched, with Democrats energized by Kim's win. New Jersey remains divided, and the Republican challenger will likely focus on Menendez's corruption allegations. The outcome could significantly impact the balance of power in the U.S. Senate.
The issue of immigration has long been contentious in the United States. President Biden's recent executive order is the latest chapter. The order prevents migrants from seeking asylum under certain conditions, facing opposition from human rights groups and some Democrats. Supporters argue it's necessary to control illegal immigration and ease the strain on border communities. The debate reflects a deeper divide over America's values and identity. Will it deter illegal immigration or push migrants into the hands of smugglers? Only time will tell.
The latest predictions from leading climate scientists paint a grim picture of the future. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense, leading to widespread devastation. From heat waves to floods, the impacts of climate change are a present reality. Human activity, particularly burning fossil fuels, is the primary driver of this crisis. Rising sea levels threaten coastal cities, displacing millions. Despite grim predictions, there is still hope. The international community has made progress with agreements like the Paris Climate Accord. The fight against climate change is a defining challenge of our time.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the most shocking news stories of June 2024. From the escalating conflict in Gaza to the contentious political battles in Washington, we've covered the events that have shaped our world this month. Stay tuned for more updates and in-depth analysis on these stories and others as they continue to unfold. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay informed.